Imagine you're having a perfectly normal day. You're talking to a friend, maybe making a cup of coffee, when suddenly your words won't come out right. Your arm feels heavy. Your face feels strange. In the space of a heartbeat, your life changes. That is a stroke. It doesn't knock politely. It arrives like a thief in the night or in broad daylight, without warning. Every year, more than 15 million people worldwide are struck by this sudden attack. 5 million never make it home. Another 5 million are left living with life-altering disabilities. And while most strokes happen in people over 65, the truth is they can happen to anyone at any age. We've seen people in their 40s, even in their 30s, walk into a hospital thinking they were just tired or stressed, only to discover they were having a stroke. Why does this matter to you? Because the difference between losing the life you know and keeping it often comes down to minutes, not hours, minutes. When a stroke cuts off blood flow to the brain cells begin to die. But here's the good news. Acting fast can save those cells, save your speech, your movement, your independence. So instead of hoping it goes away or waiting to see if you feel better, knowing the signs and what to do next could mean the difference between walking out of the hospital or never walking again. In the next few minutes, we'll break down exactly what a stroke is, how to spot it in yourself or someone you love, and what you can do right now to protect your future. At its core, a stroke is a brain attack. Just like a heart attack happens when blood flow to the heart is blocked, a stroke happens when blood flow to the brain is cut off. The brain, though it only weighs about 3 pounds, is a powerhouse that runs everything we do. Every movement, every word, every memory, every breath. And it's hungry. It needs a constant supply of oxygen carried by the blood to keep its billions of nerve cells alive and working. When that supply is interrupted, whether by a blockage or by bleeding, brain cells start to die within minutes. And because the brain controls the body, the damage can show up in many ways. If a stroke hits the part of the brain that controls facial muscles, one side of the face might droop. If it strikes the area for arm and leg movement, you might suddenly feel weakness or lose control. If it hits speech centers, your words might come out slurred or not at all. Sometimes it's vision, sometimes it's balance, sometimes it's memory. Here's what makes strokes so dangerous. The symptoms arrive suddenly, often without pain. People think they just feel off or need a rest, but the clock is ticking. Unlike other injuries, the brain doesn't store oxygen. Every minute without blood flow means more brain tissue lost, tissue that can't be replaced. And while age is a major risk factor, strokes can and do happen to younger people. We've seen athletes, busy parents, and even college students suddenly struck. Why? Because strokes aren't caused by age alone. High blood pressure, irregular heartbeat, clogged arteries, smoking, uncontrolled diabetes, these can all set the stage for a stroke, no matter how many candles are on your birthday cake. Understanding this is the first step. Instead of thinking of stroke as something that happens to other people, knowing it can happen to you or someone you love changes how you see every sign and every second. One of the biggest challenges with stroke is that it doesn't give you much time to figure things out. That's why doctors, paramedics, and survivors all repeat one word: fast. It's more than just a reminder to hurry. It's a simple way to remember the key warning signs. F is for face. Ask the person to smile. Does one side droop or look uneven? Stroke survivors often recall feeling like their face was not under their control, almost as if it belonged to someone else. A is for arms. Ask them to raise both arms. Does one drift downward or feel too weak to lift? People have described this as suddenly losing an arm, as if the muscle forgot how to work. S is for speech. Ask them to repeat a simple phrase. Is their speech slurred, jumbled, or completely absent? Sometimes the words are there in the mind, but trapped, unable to come out. T is for time. If you see any one of these signs, even if they fade after a few minutes, it's time to call emergency services immediately. Don't wait to see if it gets better. But fast doesn't cover every symptom. Many survivors report dizziness, sudden loss of balance, blurred or double vision, confusion, or a severe headache that feels different from any headache before. One woman described feeling like the floor suddenly tilted under her feet. Another said it was like someone flipped a switch and her left side went numb. Here's the critical point. Strokes or medical emergencies. Every minute without treatment means more brain cells lost. Early treatment can sometimes reverse symptoms, but only if it starts quickly. Think of it this way. Instead of waiting hours and risking lifelong disability, acting in those first precious minutes can mean walking out of the hospital on your own 2 feet. And remember, even if the symptoms vanish within minutes, something called a mini stroke or TIA, the risk of a full stroke is high in the days ahead. Treat every warning as the real thing. Your future self will thank you. Not all strokes are the same, and understanding the difference can shape how they're treated and whether treatment works at all. Doctors divide strokes into two main types based on what's happening in the blood vessels of the brain. The first and most common is called ischemic stroke. This happens when a blood vessel is blocked, cutting off oxygen to part of the brain. About 85% of strokes fall into this category. The blockage is often caused by a blood clot, which can form right in the brain's arteries or travel there from somewhere else, like the neck's carotid arteries or even the heart. Conditions like atrial fibrillation and irregular heartbeat can create clots that travel to the brain. These strokes are sometimes called a brain attack because they share the same root cause as a heart attack, a sudden interruption of blood supply. The second type is hemorrhagic stroke, which occurs when a blood vessel in the brain bursts, spilling blood into or around the brain tissue. This can be triggered by uncontrolled high blood pressure, aneurysms, or fragile blood vessels that can't handle the pressure. The leaked blood causes swelling, which can damage brain tissue and, in some cases, require emergency surgery. Both types are dangerous, but here's the key. The treatments are completely different. Giving a clot-busting drug to someone with a bleeding stroke could be deadly. That's why the first step at the hospital is almost always a brain scan to see exactly what kind of stroke it is before starting treatment. Certain risk factors raise the chances of either type: high blood pressure, smoking, high cholesterol, diabetes, obesity, and a sedentary lifestyle. But some risks are less obvious. Poor diet, chronic stress, and even undiagnosed heart rhythm problems can quietly build the conditions for a stroke. Instead of thinking, I feel fine, so I must be fine, remember this. Many people feel perfectly healthy minutes before a stroke hits. Knowing your numbers, blood pressure, cholesterol, blood sugar, and addressing silent risk factors is one of the best ways to keep both types of stroke off your horizon. When it comes to stroke, time is not just important, it's everything. Doctors often talk about the golden window, those first few hours after symptoms begin. The sooner a stroke is identified and treated, the more brain cells can be saved, and the better the chances of recovery. For an ischemic stroke, the kind caused by a blockage, one of the main treatments is a medication called a clot buster or thrombolytic. If given within about 4.5 hours of symptom onset, it can dissolve the clot and restore blood flow. In some cases, a special procedure called mechanical thrombectomy is used to physically remove the clot from the brain's arteries. But here's the catch. Both treatments have strict time limits. Miss that window, and the opportunity is gone. For a hemorrhagic stroke caused by bleeding, the goal is to stop the bleeding, relieve pressure on the brain, and prevent further damage. This may mean surgery to repair the vessel or remove pooled blood, or medications to control blood pressure and prevent spasms in surrounding vessels. Here too, speed matters. Swelling and pressure can increase rapidly, causing irreversible damage. Research confirms this urgency. One large study found that patients who received early treatment were 40% more likely to regain independence after 3 months compared to those treated later. Another showed that for every 15-minute delay in treatment, the chance of a good outcome drops significantly. Survivors often recall the pivotal role of quick action. One man said, "If my neighbor hadn't called 911 the moment my words got jumbled, I wouldn't be walking today." On the other hand, delayed action can mean missing the only chance to reverse the damage. So instead of wondering, "Should I wait and see?" the answer is no. If you suspect a stroke, call emergency services immediately. Let doctors decide if it's a stroke or not. The worst outcome of acting fast is finding out it was something less serious. The worst outcome of waiting could be losing your ability to speak, move, or live independently. Surviving a stroke is just the first battle. The road that follows, recovery, can be long, demanding, and deeply personal. But with the right support and persistence, remarkable progress is possible. Stroke rehabilitation begins as soon as a patient is medically stable, sometimes within 24 to 48 hours. The goal is simple but powerful: help the brain and body relearn lost skills and adapt to new limitations. This works because of neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself, forming new pathways to take over lost functions. Research shows that structured rehabilitation can improve outcomes even months or years after the stroke. A rehab team often includes physical therapists, occupational therapists, speech and language therapists, dietitians, psychologists, and rehabilitation nurses. Physical therapy focuses on rebuilding strength, balance, and coordination. Occupational therapy teaches ways to adapt daily activities, from dressing to cooking to new physical realities. Speech therapy helps those who have lost the ability to speak or understand language. Several innovative therapies are transforming recovery. Mirror therapy, for example, uses the reflection of a healthy limb moving in a mirror to trick the brain into activating the affected side. A review of over 1,600 patients found it improved arm and hand function significantly. Virtual reality therapy immerses patients in engaging, interactive environments, making repetitive movements more enjoyable while improving mobility faster than traditional methods. Patients in studies have shown dramatic gains. In one program, people improved their walking speed by more than 60%, endurance by over 80%, and balance by 43% from admission to discharge. That's not just statistics. It's the difference between being wheelchair-bound and walking to your own kitchen. Real stories bring these numbers to life. One survivor recalled being in a wheelchair when a determined therapist refused to let them give up. Within a week, they were standing again. Another described how VR therapy turned tedious exercises into a game they look forward to each day. Recovery is rarely a straight line. There are setbacks, plateaus, and days when progress feels invisible. But persistence pays off. Every small victory, a clearer word, a steadier step, a stronger grip, is proof that the brain can heal. And every effort brings you closer to reclaiming independence. While traditional rehabilitation has helped millions reclaim their independence, science is pushing the boundaries of what's possible after a stroke. New breakthroughs are offering hope where, just a decade ago, options were limited. One of the most exciting advances comes from researchers at UW Medicine, who recently performed the first brain implant procedure designed to restore movement in people disabled by severe strokes. The device, a soft electrode array placed on the motor cortex, aims to reconnect disrupted brain signals to muscles, potentially allowing lost movement to return. Early trials are small, with just a handful of patients, but the initial safety results are promising. If successful, this approach could change the recovery timeline from months or years to weeks. Other innovations are focusing on brain stimulation techniques using targeted electrical impulses to encourage damaged areas of the brain to re-engage. Paired with physical therapy, these methods have shown faster gains in strength and coordination. Researchers are also developing AI-guided rehab systems that adapt exercises in real time based on a patient's performance, making therapy more precise and personalized. Even the medications used after stroke are evolving, with new drugs in trials aimed at protecting vulnerable brain cells in the hours following a stroke and enhancing the brain's ability to form new connections during rehab. These aren't science fiction promises. They are real projects in clinical testing today. While they won't replace the fundamentals of early treatment and consistent therapy, they offer something equally valuable: the reassurance that recovery possibilities are expanding. Instead of thinking, this is as good as it gets, the future of stroke care may allow more people to think, I can still get better. That shift in mindset from limitation to possibility might be one of the most powerful tools of all. The best way to survive a stroke is to prevent it from happening in the first place. Or, if you've already had one, to prevent it from striking again. The good news is that many of the strongest risk factors for stroke can be managed with everyday choices. The number one culprit is high blood pressure. It weakens and damages blood vessels over time, making both blockages and bleeds more likely. Regularly checking your blood pressure and keeping it in the healthy range is one of the most powerful forms of protection. Smoking is another major risk. The chemicals in cigarette smoke damage blood vessels and thicken the blood, raising the chance of clots. Quitting smoking, no matter how long you've been at it, starts lowering your stroke risk almost immediately. Diet plays a critical role. Diets high in salt, sugar, and unhealthy fats contribute to high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and diabetes, all stroke risks. Many survivors in our community emphasize cutting back on fast carbohydrates like white bread, pastries, and sugary drinks, replacing them with vegetables, whole grains, lean proteins, and sources of healthy fats like olive oil and omega-3 rich fish. Some even credit specific changes, such as adding omega-3 supplements, controlling portion sizes, and staying hydrated, with helping them feel stronger and more stable in recovery. Exercise is equally important. You don't need a gym membership. Regular walking, swimming, or even chair-based exercises can improve circulation, control weight, and boost mood. Studies show that even 30 minutes of moderate activity 5 times a week can significantly cut stroke risk. If you have diabetes, controlling blood sugar is vital. Uncontrolled glucose damages blood vessels and accelerates plaque buildup. Regular checkups can help track and adjust your treatment plan. Finally, be aware of heart rhythm problems like atrial fibrillation. Left untreated, they can send dangerous clots to the brain. Simple screening tests at your doctor's office can detect these issues early. Instead of waiting for symptoms to appear, think of prevention as daily maintenance for your most important organ. Small, steady habits, checking your numbers, eating smart, moving your body, can mean the difference between living freely and living with the aftermath of a preventable stroke. We've covered a lot of ground: what a stroke is, how it strikes, the warning signs you can't afford to ignore, the different types and treatments, the urgency of the golden window, the road to recovery, the breakthroughs on the horizon, and the steps you can take to protect yourself. Here's the truth: stroke is sudden, serious, and life-changing. But it's also beatable. if you know what to look for and act fast. The difference between a life fully lived and a life permanently altered can come down to recognizing a drooping smile, a drifting arm, or a jumbled sentence, and calling for help immediately. Prevention is the quiet hero in this story. By controlling your blood pressure, eating well, staying active, and managing other health risks, you can dramatically lower your chances of becoming a statistic. And if you've already had a stroke, those same habits are your best defense against another one. So here's what I'm asking. Share this knowledge. Tell your family, your friends, your neighbors. Make sure the people you care about know the signs, know the urgency, and know that recovery is possible. Don't wait for a stroke to teach you the lesson. Learn it now and act on it, because the moment to save a life, maybe even your own, is the moment you see the first sign.